and welcome to But I Digress, the vlog where sometimes my mouth goes faster than my brain. I am your host Nathan, call me Nate Marchand. And Happy New Year, true believers, and welcome to my first video of 2014. I apologize for the slight delay in getting this video done, but I've been trying to get caught up on some of my other projects, so this went by the wayside. Now, because of that, I decided I would try something new this week. I'm going to do a review, but I'm going to do a book this time. Which book exactly? Cue theme song!
You got the touch. You got the power. Yeah!
Surprise, Nick! Yeah, that's right. I'm doing a review of The Unremarkable Squire by my friend and fellow author, Nick Hayden. Now, you may remember Nick. I've name-dropped him a few times on this vlog, and I interviewed him about 2 episodes ago, which you can see right here. And I just realized how silly that must look to anyone who is watching this video on anything but a computer, because the annotations don't appear on anything but the computer versions. Sorry about that, but anyway, on to The Unremarkable Squire. An emotionally detached man is randomly selected to be a knight's squire, and he soon finds himself knee-deep in adventure against his will. Now, in the writing world, people like it when you compare your work to something that has gone before, so that that gives them an idea of what to expect. And Nick mentioned to me that he was never quite sure what to compare Squire to while he was writing it and while he was marketing it. Now, as I was reading it, however, I was drawing parallels between it and The Princess Bride by William Goldman for several reasons. 1, both have a similar world. 2, both have a similar sense of humor, which if you know Nick is not that surprising. And 3, both have really quirky characters. That being said, I would still say that Nick's book is more serious and less fairy tale-like overall. Regardless, Nick's book reads pretty quickly and easily, but I do recommend you have a dictionary with you because he does tend to throw in some big and/or obscure words. And while the book has a strong overall plot, it's also kind of episodic, as it shows Obed Kainos, the book's hero, running around having a lot of different adventures while he's trying to fulfill his squirely duties. Regardless, I would say that this is probably the most commercial out of any book that Nick has written and published so far, which I know seems like a weird thing to say, but if you manage to track down and read Nick's other books, which unfortunately are out of print right now, and read those after you've read The Unremarkable Squire, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Speaking of Obed, he's the most interesting character in this novel, which shouldn't be surprising because he's the hero. But he's not your typical hero. He neither seeks adventure, nor is he a reluctant hero. When Sir Valentino selects him at the beginning of the novel to be his squire, he embraces it wholeheartedly, even though it's not something that he would have sought out for himself, because he doesn't think very much of himself. But he's also very loyal to his family and friends, and, as I mentioned, wholly dedicated to any cause that he gets involved in. Now, he does grow as a character as the novel progresses, but it's growth that more or less happens by accident. It's not something that he sought out to do. He didn't start these adventures saying that he wanted to become a better person. They just happened as he went on these adventures. In a lot of ways, to be honest, he reminds me a lot of Nick. I don't know how Nick would feel about that. I'm sorry, Nick, but I gotta be honest with you. Obed reminds me a lot of you. So any of you out there who read the novel, you'll get to know Nick a lot by reading the book, and because a lot of Nick is in Obed. The other major character in this novel is Violet, who starts off as a damsel in distress, but quickly becomes a whole lot more. In fact, without giving too much away, she's also kind of a love interest for Obed. Now, she tries very hard to kind of be this modern feminist heroine. She thinks she can take care of herself. She wants to do things on her own. She's kind of pushy. She's a little bit abrasive. But she also wants Obed to take care of her all the time. But thankfully, she's not like that all the time. And, she does grow as the novel progresses. But she's a great foil most of the time for Obed, really all the time. She's a great foil for Obed, and they play off of each other very well. In fact, most of their scenes together are some of the best written and funniest in the entire book, because she completely misunderstands what Obed says and does, thinking that he's actually being a jerk when he's being the complete opposite. Now, she does have a reason for being the way she is, but I won't tell you what it is, so you won't get any spoilers. Now let's talk about the supporting cast. No fantasy story, especially a big one like this, is complete without a great supporting cast. And if you know Nick at all, who has a fondness for both Victorian and Russian novels, it shouldn't surprise you that he has a fairly sizable supporting cast in this book. But I will admit, it's not quite as big as it is in some of his other novels. Now, the first one I want to talk about is what I like to call Obed's fellowship, if you will. The cast of misfits that he attracts to himself. Not because he's trying to win any followers, it just sort of happens. Which more or less summarizes Obed's life in general. He goes about his business, and things just sort of happen. Now, Obed's fellowship is quite eclectic and amusing. You have goofballs, you have cowards, you even have a would-be Avenger, who, in the form of this warrioress who is out to get Obed because she blames him for the death of her warrior brother. Which is funny because it wasn't Obed's fault that he died. In fact, he tried to save him, but she's not listening. You're detecting a little bit of a theme with her and violent women who don't want to listen. My personal favorite is Bolwin, who is this would-be thief. And I say would-be because he's not a very good one. He has a strange accent and speaking cadence, a penchant for giving other people silly-sounding nicknames, and he follows Obed implicitly. Wait, so if Nick is Obed, does that make me Bolwin? Anyway, moving on. Villains. There isn't really a central villain in this novel. There are a variety of villains who show up, villainous characters I should say, who show up throughout the novel on the different adventures. So there's a lot of variety here. You have a thieves guild, there are giants, there's a sorcerer, and the climax of the novel, spoiler warning, Obed fights a dragon! Because as we all know, dragons should always be your final boss. Am I right? So, like I said, supporting cast has a lot of fun variety to it. The world of the Unremarkable Squire is an interesting one. It has a medieval setting, but there are elements in it that honestly make it kind of border on high fantasy, which I should know because I just did research on fantasy subgenres recently for a presentation that I just gave. For one thing, the Unremarkable Squire has a lot of history woven throughout it, and it has multiple races and cultures coexisting in it, complete with their own histories. It's just that what keeps it from being high fantasy, other than the length, because it's a little too short to be high fantasy, is the fact that the world is not developed to the extent of, say, something like Lord of the Rings. That being said, there's still a lot of things going on in this novel, and a lot of different kinds of characters and peoples throughout it. For one thing, there's an eclectic, like I said, an eclectic group of races. You have people like the demi-men who are human beings who can transform into monsters, and you have giants like the Nephilim. You also have a lot of magic, because there's a sorcerer in it, and you have a thieves guild, and there are hints at a larger world and a larger history woven throughout it, which is in common with high fantasy, because there's a lot of legends and myths and histories woven throughout it. They give you an impression that there's more going on than what you're actually seeing in the story. A review of this novel would not be complete without me talking about its humor, which is honestly one of the best parts of the entire book, especially since it is based mostly on misunderstanding. Specifically, the supporting cast misunderstanding or misreading Obed. Obed is not a character who goes around looking for trouble. It finds him. It follows him around like a puppy. It's quite humorous, really. And what happens is that Boba will say or do something, and the other characters will misinterpret with that, and usually assume the worst, especially Violet. She'll assume the worst, and it makes something that should be as straightforward and simple a whole lot more complicated, and often gets them into trouble. And then they have to get out of it. And it has a broad range of humor in it as well. It has everything from slapstick to good old classic wit. So in one scene, something very Three Stooges-esque could happen, and then in the next scene, it'll be two characters bantering back and forth, spitting great one-liners at each other. Now, I'm sorry, Nick, but this isn't a perfect book by any means. Though I will admit, some of the imperfections that I was seeing didn't bother me, but they may bother other people. Specifically, there are some characters that people may find either annoying or abrasive, in particular Violet. She's really just mean, honestly, a lot of the time, and she's a character that has to grow on you as time goes on. And you do understand her better by the end of the book. Now, I will say, though, for sure, something that did bug me is there are certain things in the ending that seemed kind of rushed, or honestly just kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't think that they had been properly set up. I won't give any spoilers, I'm just saying. I just thought there were some things that just came out of nowhere, like I said. So, my final score for The Unremarkable Squire by Nick Hayden is an A-. This is a fun and funny fantasy novel that everyone should read. I'm serious about that, especially if you're a fan of things like The Princess Bride. I can say that not just because I'm friends with the author. It really is a fantastic book. So, with all of that said, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to learn how to write fantasy or science fiction or other kinds of speculative fiction like that? Well, you're in luck. I mentioned that I recently gave a presentation on writing fantasy, and my plan is to expand that to talk about other forms of speculative fiction, like science fiction and superhero stories. And I'm going to break that up into a multi-episode series for all of you to enjoy, so you too can learn how to write great speculative fiction stories. So, until then, thank you for joining me on But I Digress. This is Nate Marchand, signing off.